On this episode, we are putting the D-Bolt yellow engine inside the Mosquito. So before we start, this episode is proudly sponsored by Minisport. For all your classic mini and moke needs, if you need them, give them a call on the number listed above, or alternatively, www.minisport.com.au. Now, being Australian, we are larrikins and we love nicknames. So we are in Australia, in which we call Aussie. We are working on a Mosquito, which we call a Mozzie. Therefore, we're working on the Aussie Mozzie. Let's get to it. Important to eat your Weet Bix. So it's a pretty straightforward process putting the engine in. I have shown you on many episodes before of how to do it, so we're just going to run through, maybe do a bit of a time lapse, and then once we're in, get out of here and get it to the new shed. All right, so I've just grabbed the air blower and I've just run over the top of the car, just get rid of any dust. That way, when we go to put the guard covers on or we're going to lean on it, if there is any dust build up on there, we'll rub it against our clothes. It's not going to damage it whatsoever. So it's all nice and clean. I do have two guard covers and they are magnetic as well, so it's going to help us. And we're really just going to take our time putting this engine in, making sure that we don't damage or scratch anything, or worst case scenario, even drop it. So here's an engine I prepared earlier and the lifting tool in which we're going to be using. Now, one of the people who manufactured or has the rights to manufacturing these advised me that this little hook just here is pretty much a clamp that they use for the exhaust. Now, if you look at the diagram beside me, you will see that the original one had a thicker steel pipe along here, sorry, steel bar, and it was actually welded in there as well. Now, although this does the job and I've never had any problems with it, he did recommend highly to me that whenever you buy this tool from Minisport, grab this, throw it over your right shoulder, go down to a trailer shop and get yourself a set of weighted U-bolts for a trailer. Now the reason for that is if they are high tensile, they will be stronger and enable you to use this in the correct fashion in which it is. As I said, like, this is all right, this will work. However, to make sure that it is as strong as possible, I would get someone to weld it all the way around here on each side. The piece of steel is probably 5 mil thick, I reckon, so there's certainly enough thickness there to be able to pump some heat into it. Also, when you're using it on an engine, it is important and imperative to make sure that you either use upgraded studs, so we're using upgraded ones here, they are the ARP ones, or you need to use it with the standard studs that it came with from the factory. Now the reason for that is if you get some cheap Chinese studs, you put it on there and it's only done up a couple of turns, chances are you're going to rip it out of the head, rip it out of the block, you're going to do some serious damage, cause serious injury and or death, or even worse, damage to your classic mini or moke when using the tool. So make sure that whenever you use this, either use the standard studs that came with it, or ARP ones, or high tensile bolts. You can obtain these from classic bolt shops. So essentially here you need to make sure that once it's on, you do have significant threads sticking out from the top of it once the nut is placed. If the nut is in line with the top of the stud, that's completely fine. If it has some studs showing, that's even better. Essentially you want to make sure that there is as much surface area there covered as possible by the nut, and that's either flat or protruding across the top. So let's whip these nuts off. Let's use this and we're going to lift it from here instead of this one just here. All right, next step, grab the tool, slide it over the top, lift that up. Now we're just going to use the nuts here, one on either side, with the washers, just wind them on. Now I do actually have the owner of this vehicle here helping us, so anything we do or say will be used against me if we... All right, so we're just going to nip these up. They don't need to be mega tight, they're not holding everything together for the purposes of it running, but so long as it's tight enough where it won't come loose. It'll be fine. All right, let's lift it up, put it in. So, silly me, upon buying some of the bolts, I only bought UNF bolts and we actually need UNC. So we have some bolts that are significantly longer. We'll just run a nut over the edge. We're gonna cut it on the back side of it. That way, when we loosen off the nut, Tomo's tech tip here is when you loosen off, it'll recut the thread, therefore you're able to put it into the vehicle. So, time to get on grinder. All right, so next job is to put the lower engine mounts in, or the bolts anyway. So we have the two holes, one here and one here. People hate doing this job, but it's not overly bad so long as you have the right tools. Essentially what we need to do, this hole for the mount is about here and about here. We need to lift up this side, line up the holes, and then put the bolts through. On the other side, we don't have the bracket that holds the mounts to the actual block itself, or the gearbox, so we're gonna just put a bit of foam in between there. But this side, we should be able to put the bolts in, tighten them up, and then do the steady bars. So kind of just fluke this as to where we need it to be. The engine needs to come this way a little bit, so if you just give it a bit of a shove, just so we can bring these bolt holes a little bit closer. Yeah, that's looking good. Okay, cool. Yep, that is perfect. All right, so Tomo's tech tip here is put one bolt in, put a nut on the other side, lower it down, then wiggle it, and then that way you can line up the other bolt correctly on the opposite side. So we got the back one in now. We're just going to try and get that front one in. Oh, that is almost perfect. I just need to take the washer off. There we go. All right, let it go. And then and stick the washer on the back side of the bolt and then put the nut on. All right, so we got the left side in, or the driver's side. Because we don't have the bracket for the right hand side, if you just want to bring the camera down here and have a look. So the bracket that sits along here and runs up the side, we don't have that one. What we're gonna do is just jack it up. We're gonna get a rubber block and just stick it between the subframe and this bracket here. So we're just gonna wedge that between where these studs are and there. And we're just gonna lower that down.
Ready?
Yep. Yeah, perfect. Cool, that's just gonna sit there. That'll be fine for us to transport as well. All right, next thing, we'll put the steady bar in at the top on the driver's side. And then, yep, take the jack out. And then put the steering column in, put the main bolt in through the bottom of the steering column, and we'll call it an episode. All right, so next thing we need to do is we're gonna mount the pedal box. It does need a lick of paint, so we're just gonna mount it in there temporarily. Essentially, this is gonna mount underneath here, bring the studs up through there. Actually, some of these studs are a bit going, so we might just try and belt those back into shape. We're gonna mount the clutch and clutch and brake master cylinders up here. That'll just give that extra support. We do have a new base plate and gasket available just here. Once that's in, we can then mount that on top, and then the steady bar will go directly under here, just like that. So without that support, we can only half mount it to the vehicle. So we just got to make sure that we put everything together at the same time to give the best sort of rigidity and strength that we can. All right, so next thing is put the pedal box in from underneath. Yep, grab those. So as he guides it in, we're going to put the new gasket on. As I said, we still need to clean up the old pedal box itself. So we can always take that back out, that's not an issue. Just so that way now we've got some sort of rigidity. Otherwise, having it in there, even though we're just literally going to be pushing it on the trailer, strapping it down, rolling it a couple of kilometres down the road, rolling it off into the shed, just to help add that extra little bit of strength there, because the last thing we want is for it to be rolling around and before we know it, it's smacking on the freshly done paint job, I guess. Not at all, because yeah, see how that's angled? Yeah. And that's flat? Yeah, so it has to sit up there like that. This is just kissing the edge of this. So this front bolt, the original one, needs to bend that way a little bit.
Which one?
The front one. Okay. So this one here, it needs to go this way. Yep. We reckon we try that and then go again. We're just kissing the side of the paint and it's just starting to nick it, yeah. It's just these finer adjustments we need to make when you're doing this sort of stuff. Especially this thing's been apart for years on end, and we've been sitting in boxes that, you know, have had other parts in them as well. It's been rolling around, it's been moved. Things are going to bend over time. Even the body as well has probably moved a little bit since he started painting and since he pulled off the road. So just those little fiddly things you got to do while you're making these builds. What about those pedals? Can you push the pedals up? Maybe that's what's stopping it.
Push them up.
Sorry, depress them. Yeah. So what about this one here?
No, that hits the actual.
Yeah, I think this one where my finger is, just down here. Yeah. If you push that in.
Okay. So. Yeah.
There you go. That's it. That's the money. Cool. It's probably that adjustment all along. Hopefully fucking not. Okay, so now comes the little sleeve. That one sits on there. We then get our new fresh plate. This plate is available from Minisport. This does only suit the Rover Mini, so it is different to the classic Mini like Grace or earlier models in the 60s and even through the 70s. Right, so that plate sits directly on top like that. We're going to grab the brake master. Now I assume that this one sits something along the lines of this, because I've only worked on Aussie cars before. Should sit something like that. And that seal is going to be a pain to be able to get on as well. Right, so we're running into a bit of an issue here. It feels like the hole for it isn't big enough to be able to fit that through there. So let's just run with the OG one that we've got for now. We might just need to make the hole a bit bigger. It just doesn't seem like that's going to go in through there. All right, so we just worked out what the issue is. So as you can see, the original one, it is quite larger on the brake master cylinder side, whereas the old, or the new one, should I say, was, wherever I just put it, beside me. Anyway, it was reversed. So this is an 88 model plate, and the one I've got, the new one, is an 89. So they are two different ones. So these are the last of the Leyland ones. So we're going to reuse the old one and then just swap it over down the track. So install that. And that should sit in there. Sit in there just like that for now. There we go. All right, next thing is we're going to put the steady bar on. So this is the backing plate just here. It does have a spacer that goes between there just to space it out a little bit because of the cross tube that sits up here on the steady bar. So just this one here. And then we have the dog leg as well. So it sits something like this. And then the steady bar sits directly in there, just like that. That bolt should be long enough because it is going to crush with the washer on there as well. So important to get this one lined up, then that one, and then the one on the firewall, or vice versa. All right, so we've put the steering column in, we put the steady bar in, the wheels now on. It is worthwhile noting as well that when you are moving a vehicle, it's important to support the wheel bearings. So if you don't have the drive shafts in there, put a threaded rod or a bolt with a large washer on either side, tighten up. That way you're gonna support it, otherwise it will fail. And by the time you get it out the driveway, the wheels will literally fall off. So we've put the drive shafts in, we've tightened everything up. The wheel nuts are on with a small little rattle gun, that'll be fine. We're going to raise it up now, lower it down, then we are going to ship it out tomorrow to the new premises.
No?
And keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Yep, that'll be fine there. There's one. All right, down periscope. Okay, so as you can see, Kev, if you just head down the passenger side, we have raised it quite a lot just to enable ground clearance. Not that, you know, we really need it because a lot of the stuff we're going to be putting onto is going to be completely flat, but yeah, it's just worthwhile noting that if you are transporting a car like this, to try and raise it up, give you the best possible sort of ground clearance you can, and also getting the jack underneath it as well, it's definitely going to help. So it looks a little bit ridiculous at the moment, but because the customer is 7'12", he needs it a little bit higher. So next episode, we're going to get it back to the new shed and get cracking. Keep going with the engine, just finish off all the pieces that we've done, replace some of the things, get the mount in there properly on the other side underneath. I think it's got a lower steady bar mount. Take the steering column out, just all the little odds and ends that we haven't been able to manage to do today. It is getting quite late. It is 11 o'clock, so catch you on the next one.